Welcome everybody. Welcome. I hope you had lunch. So welcome to the third session of the third day of Có Hiểu Có Thương. So we decided to keep the Vietnamese name of the series of the webinar. So because this is, I believe that this is a very familiar name for you until now when we go to the third session of the third day.
Very good.
Thank you so much for spending your very precious time, especially lunch, to join us in this session. So for your information, this session will be in English, and we don't have translator for this session. So I expect that we can use English fluently, but if you need any help, we have chị Hồng here as our supporter. And if you have any questions or even your wonder or something like that, you can text her privately or text in the inbox, the box chat, so we can read. And also feel free to turn on your subtitle. Sorry. Yeah. We can turn on the subtitle of Zoom. I think that's pretty good. So we can better understand of this session and also the sharing of the speaker. Yeah, so first of all, I would like to introduce a bit about Có Hiểu Có Thương. This is the series of free webinars with the subject. The series of free webinar about mental health, and this is free for community. We have been organized Có Hiểu Có Thương for the 4 years, and each session we have different theme. And this time is about how to take care of your romantic relationships. And Linh and I, we are the two hosts of the program. And today there's also one of our amazing supporters, chị Hồng. And if you have any concerns or questions or need personal support, you can text chị Hồng. And so I would like to introduce our speaker today, Rochelle Pryor.
Thank you.
And today we will listen key components from the Gottman method designed to help couples grow in fondness and trust. And a little bit about our speaker. He's a licensed social worker from the United States and received a Master of Social Work degree from the University of Illinois. And he has a very diverse career background in counseling and social work. And he has provided crisis counseling, family counseling, individual counseling, even both in children and adults, and couples counseling. And he has been trained in both Gottman method and emotionally focused therapy for couples. And he believes each person has significance and approaches the counseling process with a collaborative approach to understand the issue and to outline the goal of therapy. So we will have our presentation from Rochelle, and also have a 15 minutes at the end of the session for Q&A. So the Zoom is for you now. Rochelle.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, it's really a joy to be a part of this, and I really do hope that as I communicate that each of you will be able to take away something that will, what I'm sharing actually can help in any relationship, even though it's specifically for a romantic relationship. With that, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is the Sound Relationship House by Doctors John and Julie Gottman. And I'll say a little bit more about that later. But one of the things that we all know is when we meet someone new that we're interested in, we're actually curious about them. And we ask all sorts of questions. So I thought I would fill in a few blanks that you may or may not be asking. I myself have been married for 34 years this year, and I have 2 kids. And I started a counseling center in Hanoi 12 years ago called Crosspoint. So just that's a small introduction, but as it was shared, is that I really truly believe each of you has value, and I really do hope that this is a beneficial time for you. So today, as we focus on what contributes to fondness and trust in a relationship, we really do long for that. It's the way we're designed. All the research from in attachment in several years is just so fascinating, and it helps us understand, oh, that's why we have this conflict. And what I'm going to be talking about today is to help address some of the very practical ways that we can strengthen a relationship. We can grow in fondness, we can grow in trust. But what's underneath that is just knowing that we have a longing to connect. We have a longing to be able to share our needs with someone, and that someone we can deeply trust, and with our secrets, and someone we can love, and to be able to be understood and accepted. Those are all part of being human and our needs. So I'm just looking at my notes. So just please be patient as I want to make sure that I capture what I have prepared for today. So as we look at the Sound Relationship House that was developed out of 40 plus years of research, when Dr. Gottman did his research, the reason it's been so successful in helping couples is because he didn't look at just what problems couples had, but he also looked at what were they doing well, and what did that look like? Instead of saying, well, there's a problem, let's fix it, he said, well, here are the issues, but how are other couples doing well in that? And so I'm going to show on my screen the Sound Relationship House. And even though we're not covering the whole Sound Relationship House today, it just kind of gives you a picture. And I'm going to be putting links in the chat for you to be able to read articles on your own. The Gottman Institute has hundreds of articles about relationship that I believe would be helpful. And so I'll be putting that on here. So as we look at the Sound Relationship House, it has 7 floors and 2 walls. And you can see the true walls are trust and commitment. Well, trust is in my title, because without trust, we can't have a relationship. But on the other side is commitment. Without commitment to the relationship, we can't have a relationship either. So those are why they're the 2 walls. They support the house, but then we look at the 7 floors real quickly here. First one is called Love Maps, which is an interesting title, but all it means is knowing the inner world of your partner, what they like, what they dislike, their favorite color, and all those things that make up what's going on inside the other person. The next floor is fondness and admiration. And simply that's feeling affection for your partner and valuing and appreciating them. Now, some of this sounds really basic when I see couples, when I've gone through the Sound Relationship House, they go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's the brilliancy. Usually genius comes out in very simple, easy to grasp things that we can apply. And that's very true of this. It's just, the difference is intellectually knowing something and being able to apply it in our relationships is where it gets hard. The next one is turn towards instead of away. And that's really just responding to the other person, letting them know you are there for them. And we'll be talking about those three a little bit more, a little bit later here, and turning the positive perspective. That's our default reaction to our partner. It can be positive or it can be negative. And that floor is dependent on how well we're doing in the first three floors. And then managing conflict, self-explanatory. Make life dreams come true. That's supporting the life dreams of each other. And then last, it's creating shared meaning. It's having rituals in our life of connection. Like, what do we do when we say goodbye to each other? What do we do when we leave, when we come back? How do we connect? Symbols, like what home is, what is money, and how do we see those? And doing something together that has greater meaning than just our relationship. But I'm there, like I said, the Gottman Institute has many blog posts on each of these that you can read on your own. And at the end, as it was shared, we will have a question and answer time. And I welcome any of your questions at that time. So the first three floors, building love maps, share fondness and admiration, and turning towards instead of away, are on the bottom because they form a foundation. And they are the ones that deal with the friendship of the relationship. And we wonder why are they on the foundation? Why are they so important? But it's because they answer three important questions. Do they know me? Does the other person actually know who I am? And then that's from the first floor. The second floor is, do they care for and value me? And when we're in a relationship and we don't feel cared for by the other person, that is extremely painful. And so that's an important question that comes out of that floor. And of course, we're going to be talking about ways to let the other person know that we do care, that we do value. And then the last one, I've heard more on this last one than anything else, both from the Gottman and from EFT, from emotionally focused therapy. It says, will they be there for me? Can I trust them when I need them the most? And that is the cry of our hearts. It's like, will that person be there for me? Each of us in life will go through hard times. And it's important to know that the other person, that we have confidence that they'll be there for me. And that's the three floors and the questions each of them answer. I'm going to have just a short exercise later on. And so if you want to, if you don't have pen and paper, please have that. It won't be required for the exercise, but some people will want to write down what the exercise is about. Okay. In the first floor is one of the things that when you first meet, as I said earlier, we ask lots of questions. And that is because we're naturally curious. We want to know, oh, who is this person? Oh, do I want to get to know them more? And as we learn more and start to desire a relationship with them, we ask deeper and deeper questions. And that's a very important part of any development in a relationship. And the challenge is though, after being together for a period of time, sometimes we lose our curiosity. We think we know enough about the person. And what Dr. Gottman found in his research is the answers to the questions that we asked, some of them will change. And it's important to update that. And they actually developed an app, and it's called Gottman Card Decks. And it's a free app, and it has, one of the card decks is love maps. And it's a real fun way that's not a competition. It's just asking questions that you, for example, if I went out to dinner with my wife, and we've done this, and we'll pull out that Gottman card deck, and it's like, well, what we don't want to talk about work, or we don't want to talk about this other thing. We want to do something different. This is a real help in giving us a good conversation, because we can pull out the card decks, and I pull up the first card, and it says, what is your favorite book, for example? That question is not for me. I'm reading the question, and I have to answer it for my wife. And so the important point in that is to remember that it's normal to get it wrong. Her favorite book when we first met was something, and now it's not unusual for it to change. And there's, of course, all sorts of questions, but it's meant to be fun. All right. But it is also very practical in knowing our partner. It helps us to know what gifts to buy. It helps us to know that, oh, they're going to make a visit to their family. And we know whenever they visit their family, they have an emotionally difficult time with a specific relative. And if we know that, then we can be supportive. We can be there for them. We can be a listening ear. We can be an encourager. We can be a support. So that's how it gets really practical on this floor. And if we don't know, then it's a great question to ask. You know, it's like, as you're getting ready to go visit, you know, it's like, what are you most afraid of? What's going to be the most difficult? Those are questions you can ask. And it really shows an interest that you are interested in them. So I'm going to, oh, I thought I stopped sharing my screen. Sorry about that. Okay. As we go to the second floor, it's about fondness and admiration. And, you know, as we develop the relationship, we start to admire who they are. They admire the things they've lived through, or the things that they've done, or their character. And, you know, when we first meet, of course, we're wanting to make a good appearance, like, oh, but so we kind of, they don't necessarily see who we might be rest of the day. But it's really hard to hide who you are and your character. And so these are things that can show up, like being helpful. If someone is helpful, that's a specific character trait that you can notice. And they're not going to hide that. And, you know, an example would be when I was first meeting who became my wife. We were at a picnic together, and she began to do something no one else was doing, and that was helping to pick up the different things from the picnic. I was so impressed. Like, you know, she was self-motivated. I found out that she was done eating, and she thought this would be a way that she can just help with the picnic, and she cleaned up things. And I was just so impressed with her character. And that's something that she wasn't doing for my benefit. It was just something that was her character. So that's something I want to encourage you as you are starting a relationship. It can be exciting. Usually when we start a relationship, we have what they call the in-love experience. And it's an exciting time. And there's a lot of curiosity at that time. We ask lots of questions. We love hanging out with them. And that is an important time to really know who they are. And that would be something I would encourage each of you to do, is to notice, oh, these are things that I'm noticing that I appreciate about them. And kind of have an idea. It's like, well, what character traits do you value? What are your own values? And that is something that will guide you and helping you as you get to know somebody. It's like, oh, this is someone that I'm wanting to deepen a relationship, or no, it's not, because they don't have the characteristic or the character that I really value. And for a lot of us, like myself, I didn't have a list of what I was looking for, but when I saw it, I did know, like, oh, it really resonated with me. Oh, I really value that. So I think the hardest thing, and this is just a side note, I think the hardest thing is during this in love time that we all experience at the beginning of a relationship, is to see the things that after the in love experience wears off, which is about 2 years. It can be shorter, but around 2 years. We see things that we now concern us. And so I just encourage you to have different ways to be able to see that, either noticing yourself as best you can, but also accepting input from a trusted friend that expresses concern. And I think that's it's really hard to do when we're in that in love experience, to do that. But it's just something I want to encourage you to do. So as our relationship matures, some people have the idea that the in love experience time is the best time of the relationship. I want to encourage you that it actually is not the best time. It's important, and it's a great time, but it's the fact that we, in our relationships, and when we're talking about the different things you can do that actually help deepen the relationship, deepen your love, deepen the trust, deepen the whole experience of the relationship, can be richer. But it does take intention, and it does take work. Not work where we're going, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this, but work where it is effort, but in the end, you are so grateful that you put in the effort. So one of the things that Dr. Gottman talks about is called a culture of appreciation. And if you look at your own culture, and like, for example, I have Irish heritage, and I was learning some years ago that in the Irish culture, at least in the past, I cannot speak to currently, but in the past, it was like you did not talk positive about your kids. You didn't talk positive about your grandkids. And it's not that you didn't think well of them, it just was seen as something not to do. And so that was, a real challenge when you're wanting to express. And so think about the cultural pressures that you have to express appreciation. And what are those cultural pressures that you feel? And it's really hard. I know that when we're looking at our own culture, it's really hard sometimes to see clearly what it is. But we know, we get a picture of cultural pressures when we hear something else that goes against the cultural pressure. So as I talk about a culture of appreciation, just be aware, it's like, oh, yeah, this is something that may be challenging, or no, this is something that won't be a challenge. But a culture of appreciation is something that has been shown to really help develop fondness, that affection, that sense of care in the relationship. And myself, having worked in Vietnam several years, I really love this floor because I've actually seen how it changes marriages. We deal with the cultural resistance, and we talk about why this is helpful. And one of the things that Dr. Gottman said years ago in a training I was in, he was talking about how in just a committed relationship, you have a choice. You have your home culture, the home you grew up in, which is going to be different than the other person's home. And then you have the general culture. But when you form a new home, you have an opportunity to include in your home culture what you think will be helpful. And I meet different couples, and each of them brings positives from their home culture, and they have to decide, well, how is it going to look in our home, knowing that this is not how I grew up, this is not what I saw, but I want it for my home. And that's something that was really empowering, because it's like, oh, we actually have a choice in what we put into our home culture. And it'll take work, because we naturally fall back on what we grew up with. You ever heard the statement, it's like, I sound just like my dad, or I sound just like my mom? Well, that's because that's what you experienced. And what you want to know is that that's normal, and you're going to do that, but you don't have to stay stuck there. You can incorporate a culture of appreciation. And I want to get to some specifics here. And the first level of appreciation is just saying thank you. And that is hard for different people to actually just say thank you for the simple things, because we have this idea that, well, they were supposed to do it anyway. It's their job, or that's their role, or whatever it is that we have in our mind that we don't need to appreciate. But as I talk to couples here in Vietnam, and what's really I love to see is, like, when they start using just even simple thank yous, the burden of, let's say one person has a difficult chore in the home, whatever it is, and they feel taken for granted. But if the other person starts to say, oh, thank you for doing that, it's amazing how it feels lighter. It's still a chore, but it feels lighter, and they feel appreciated. It makes a huge difference. And so that's the first thing you want to be able to do with a culture of appreciation, is to notice what the other person does. Thank you for taking me to work today. Thank you for picking up that item at the store I asked you to pick up. And to me, it's amazing how much how deeply that can feel in our heart when we feel appreciated. Even if the cultural pressure is saying, well, you should just do it because that's what you do, it makes a big difference. The next step is to be specific. And I'll take the example that I was just saying, thank you for taking me to work. That's one part of that, but now let's get to a specific character trait. You are just so considerate and thoughtful. And it's like whenever I need a ride to work, you're always able to either take me or find another way for me to get there. And I just really appreciate that. That feels very deeply. The other person some people have a hard time taking in appreciation, but it does affect them because you're being very specific about a character trait, about how they care. They're thoughtful, they're considerate. So different examples would be, I appreciate how you persevere. I appreciate your generosity. I appreciate the way you help my mom. I appreciate the way you help me. Those are, and you can have a long list. I knew of one author that he kept a list of all the things he appreciated about his wife. They had been married for 40 plus years. I can't remember. It was a long time. And he, many years before, he had started writing down all the things he appreciated. And that, when we appreciate, it does two things. One, it helps us to feel more appreciation. We feel more gratitude, which is an antidote for what are marriage killers, like criticism and contempt, are two of them. And criticism is just saying things to the other person that are can sound critical, but it can also include you never or you always. Those also sound critical to the other person. And contempt is somehow we're superior, somehow we're better than the other person. Like the way we say, make a criticism, or the way we roll our eyes, that communicates contempt. But as we grow in appreciation, we're actually going in a different direction. It's not that criticism's not going to come up, but we do want to always try to kill contempt, because that is the most dangerous relationship killer from Dr. Gottman's research. So when we're focused on what we appreciate and not on what we don't like or what we're frustrated at, it actually starts changing our perspective on the other person. And then early on in the relationship, it is learning how to express what we are unhappy with. And I'm not spending really much time on that today, but I just want to give a little side note that developing a culture of appreciation does not mean that you have no complaint. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't, bring up a problem in the relationship. You still need to do that. It's still important, and that is actually if I finish some things here, then maybe I will add that in. But it's all about the overall culture and overall feeling in the relationship, is the development of the culture of appreciation. Now, the last part that I want to add about the culture of appreciation, we had saying thank you, or I appreciate you doing that, to I appreciate how you persevere, or I appreciate your generosity. Now we want to tie that to a specific circumstance. An example would be, yesterday when the bowl of soup spilled all over the floor, and it's like, and I was worried that it was gonna, cause you to be delayed to get to work, and I was just amazed at your patience and your calmness, as you just said, don't worry about it. It'll only take a few minutes to get it picked up. And we picked it up together. And it's like, I felt such admiration for how you handled that situation. That's a very specific, the other person knows the circumstance. They hear how you were watching how their positive characteristic, their patience, their calmness, and also how they were trying to keep me calm, exactly in that situation, trying to just keep everything like it's going to be okay. And that is an example. And so I'll give one more example. Another example would be we'll go with, I appreciate your generosity. And generosity does not have to be finances. It can be generosity with our other resources, which includes time. And so an example of that is like, you see the other person and they're spending time helping a younger sibling, for example, with their homework. And they are also helping in other ways around the house. And you're just like, I really admire how you're so generous with yourself. You're generous with your time and your ability to help a sibling with his homework. That's so impressive. I really appreciate that about you. So now I'd like to take about 5 minutes or so. We're going to do an exercise. And in this exercise, I want to you to first think about a person. It could be a parent, it could be a friend, it could just be a helpful person that you recently met. You don't really know them much, but they made an impression upon you. Or it can be the person you are in a relationship with. Now, think about that person and what do you appreciate about them? And what recent specific situation did you see this characteristic, this action that you appreciate? So this next part, you can use your imagination, or you can use pen and paper, or you can type it on your computer. But if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. And I want you to imagine going back to that specific situation, thinking about that person and where it occurred, what's happening. And as you see it in your imagination, what are you feeling? What are you feeling about that person? What are you appreciating? And as that forms that specific appreciation in the context that is happening, I'd like you to be able to, either in your imagination, to be able to share that with that person, or to write it out, or to type it out. Just take a minute to do that. All right. Yeah, I just saw the note. when we get to the question and answer time, you know, if you have, if you want to share, you know, how that felt to be able to do that, you know, I'd love to hear. But it's, as I said earlier, when we do appreciate the other person and we verbalize it, and then it can be in a note or a letter. That's one of the wonderful things. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, loving kindness. That's something we can certainly, we all want to experience, that's for sure. And it's like, how does that feel? And I know that sometimes if it's a person that we are no longer together with, that might also be a little painful, and make us miss them. And that's also true. And that's a whole thing of, you know, we do go through grief and loss in life, and it's important to honor that, and it's important. So I want to just I had one more thought on that, and it will come back in just a second. But it's the this is, yeah, what I was going to share was, when we appreciate, it actually also changes us, because we grow in our fondness and admiration, and the other person feels that fondness and admiration more. And it really, to me, it's almost like, you know, when you have a squeaky door, fondness and admiration is much like when you add oil to the hinge, or this, you know, what's causing the squeak, and it doesn't squeak anymore. That's kind of what fondness and admiration does. It helps our relationship to feel smoother. Not that we won't have problems, but I'm just talking about on a daily basis. So thank you for walking through me with that exercise. I'd like to go on to our next and last topic, and that is, oh, let me just make one more note. On fondness and admiration, it actually takes a lot of practice to actually notice what we weren't seeing before. And I remember as when I was growing and developing a culture of appreciation, just I grew as I did this, as I appreciated and expressed. I started noticing more things, and that was really, I mean, it was neat for me and to see it, and neat for, of course, beneficial for the other person as well. But it's something that I want to encourage you, that it might start with just a few things, and that's actually okay. Even if it's just one thing, it will grow as you notice and keep paying attention. It'll be something that can grow. It's worth the effort. All right. So I really love fondness and admiration, but I'm fascinated with this last floor, turning towards. And I'll explain that in a minute. But turning towards is when your partner asks a question, makes a comment, makes a noise that says, hey, I got something, or anything where they want your attention. You respond to them with an answer or behavior that lets them know you are paying attention to them. It's not just saying yes to whatever the other person is asking or requesting. Saying yes is actually just it's also your behavior. And what's amazing about this floor is it builds trust in the relationship, because you're answering the question is the other person there for me? When I'm in trouble, will they be there for me? This floor is answering that question. And that's the other challenge of this floor is saying yes is not always convenient. Saying yes is can be hard. It can be easy, and we're going to start with the simple ones that most of us do when they come up. For example, you're eating a meal together and they ask you to pass something, whether it's a napkin or something else, and we pass it to them. Believe it or not, that very simple thing that we do is communicating, I'm there for you. And another example is that you're taking a walk and they notice something and says, hey, look at that bird over there. And you turn and you look at the bird. That is saying yes. That's responding to their initiation to connect. And one of the pictures I see in this is like the more that we say yes, it's like we keep on adding connection points between the two of us, and it's quite amazing. Now, gets a little more complex. Those are all the simple things. If you're talking and you are wanting to go to a specific store tomorrow, and the other person is wanting to go to a specific store, and they ask you, would you go to the store with me? Or to this store with me? Now, I myself don't always like to go to the store, but that means I have a choice in that matter. Do I go because I know it's meaningful for her, or do I not and do what I want to do? And which may be nothing, because I'm fighting against myself. It's like, I don't really like going to that store, but I can say yes. And what helps me say yes is knowing that actually communicates love. It communicates that I am there for them, and they will actually appreciate it. And it makes an impact on the relationship. And I'm going to come back to a little bit, because I want to make clear that as I talk about saying yes, I don't mean there's never a place for a no. No's are okay, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So another one is basically our veiled requests, like, hey, I'm going to the store right now. And they say it in such a way that it lets you know that they would like you to come with them. And that's one. And another one, it can come out as a criticism. We never spend time together. That's actually a request to spend more time together. They're missing having time with you. They value having time with you. And that's part of some of the work I do in the counseling is actually helping shift things from a criticism to a request. Because when we request it, it sounds completely different than if it's a criticism. And so that's also part of these desires to connect. So why is this important? This is a disturbing statistic is from Dr. Gottman's research, is in young couples, if people are not turning toward, or only turning towards, that means saying yes, 33% of the time, their relationship, if it doesn't change, and it can change, but if it doesn't change, their relationship is gonna get worse and worse. It's heading towards breaking up. And so that's how powerful this is. And the other thing is that when we start saying yes more, we actually will get more requests, which gives us more opportunity to say yes. So it's very dependent on how we're responding. And the more we respond, the more connected we will be. And so, no, this is my general, and from the Gottman research, is if we can reserve no for when we actually can't do it. So like, for example, if I was asked to go to the store, but I actually had a meeting, then I can't go. And so but I can say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go, I got a meeting. So it's a no with an explanation. That helps soften a no, because if I say no, I don't want to go, that sounds totally different. It's not that I can't ever say that, it's just that we try not to say that. Successful couples that their relationships are doing well say yes about this. You don't worry about this statistic, because these are just kind of like guidelines to help you know, oh, they represent most of the time versus hardly any of the time. So 83% of the time or more is saying yes. Now, that is not 100%. We all have bad days. We all have days where I just want to relax, and it's like, and if I get asked to go do something, I'll say no, I just don't really want to, or I'm not up to it, and that's okay. Like I said, it's not 100%, and we're allowed to be human. We don't always have to have the energy necessary to say yes. It's just, if we can say yes most of the time, that really helps the relationships. And this is what's so interesting about this floor, is that I would have never thought saying yes meant so much to the other person. And what I have learned, and what the research shows, is that when we say yes, when it's inconvenient, that actually communicates a lot to the other person. And so it is an opportunity. And I'm keeping an eye on our time. And another important concept of saying no or saying actually yes is, it's a no right now, but a yes for when I finish my meeting, I can go to the store with you. So that's a delayed yes, and that's also okay. I remember how I was not good at verbalizing. I would think about it, it's like, oh man, if she was going to the store in an hour, I could go with her. I would think that, but I didn't think to add it to my answer. It's like, no, I can't, I got a meeting. Then I can say, as I learned to put that into practice, I could go, oh, I can't right now, but in an hour when I'm done with my meeting, I can go. That's a delayed yes, and that makes an impact on the other person. So just to summarize, the Sound Relationship House was developed from 40 plus years of research, and they were able to take all that information and continue to do research and develop the foundational theory for the Gottman method in the Sound Relationship House. And when you pull it all apart like that and divide it into floors, it makes it much easier to understand, oh, these are components of a relationship. And obviously there's more, and they undergirding this is including attachment theory and other things. And one other resource that I recommend for people that are in a long-term relationship is stuff by Sue Johnson. She's written some different books. And she's the other method I have studied, emotionally focused therapy. But from Dr. John Gottman's research, the first 3 floors deal with the friendship, and that is foundational to a growing, thriving relationship. So thank you. And now I'd just like to open it up for questions.
So everybody, if you have any questions, you can write your questions or just raise your hand. If we have a question from none.
Hi there, can you hear me? Hi there. Oh.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me well? Because I'm outside, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's just a little echo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's
Okay, let
okay.
me. Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Fryer, for your sharing. I find it really helpful because I have heard of the Gottman's relationship house for a while, but I didn't have a chance to actually learn about it. Yeah, I really appreciate the information that you shared with us today.
Great.